Okay, everyone has joined in the waiting room, so we're going to get started. Good morning. My name is Lauren Francis. I'm the Broadband Marcom Manager for the Colorado Broadband Office. And we welcome you all to I think this is our 5th industry roundtable that we started last fall with these. So we look forward to these calls every other month to speak with you, our industry leaders, as well as provide you some updates with what's going on in our office, as well as what's going on in the whole broadband landscape throughout all of Colorado. So we are going to jump right in. Just a couple of reminders. The goals of this industry roundtable, again, for us to provide you some quick updates, but it's really your time to ask our team questions and receive answers. Our entire Colorado Broadband Office staff is on the call. Brady Ryder wasn't able to join us today, but the entire staff is here, including some of our support staff from our legislative liaisons to our law office. We have NTIA support on the call. We have our digital equity team on the call. So we have everybody here ready to answer your questions. So we'll give you that time in just a moment. We do want to ask that if you have questions, just hold them until we finish giving our updates. And like I said, we'll open time for you to ask your questions. So we are going to get started here. One of our guests today is Brad Clausen, who is with USDA, and he has an update on some of the programs going on over there. So Brad, you can go ahead.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. So I am Brad Clausen. I'm the General Field Rep or GFR for both Colorado and Utah. And I'm going to spend my time today talking about two of our programs that have open application windows. But, I'll just mention our Reconnect. We are working on the round 4. We hope to get all those offers out by the end of next month and then have another window, this fall, winter. So that's where we're at with our Reconnect. But let's go ahead and jump in and talk about our Community Connect. So we have $79 million available. Now, we didn't have a Community Connect grant window last year, so this is kind of twice the funding that we normally do. So it's a great opportunity if you're looking for a small area up to $5 million to build out. But really the purpose of this is to deploy broadband for all residential and business customers in the post-funded service area. Now for that, there's only one PFSA. You draw an area, you kind of get one bite on that apple, unlike Reconnect, where you can have as many PFSAs as you want. So an eligible area need to be rural and lack any existing broadband speed of at least 25/3. So if there's one house there, then you draw a map and there's one house that has service, it's going to be ineligible. So you really have to look at that very closely. The notice of funding opportunity was published March 20th and the window closes June 20th. So a little bit of time left, over a month. If you have any questions on this, reach out to me. There's a few things on our Community Connect that you have to look out for that are kind of unique. You have to have a community center. There's a few things that I'd probably talk to you about if you are interested in applying for this. And I did mention there's $79 million. Now the awards, $100,000 are the minimum, and it does go up to $5 million. That's an increase for this round. It previously was $3 million, and it's a 15% match, which is if you can't get 100% right, 15 is a pretty good way to go. So I do have the link to our website there. We have great information on our websites. There's been a couple of webinars. You can go there and listen to those. And the same thing is on the technical assistance program. We do have a contact us link. And this isn't kind of that, you hit the link and you never hear from anybody. If you do that, contact us, you're going to get someone reach back to you probably within a day. So if you have any questions and you can't get a hold of me on the Community Connect, please go ahead and hit the contact us on our website there and we'll get back to you. So the next program is a broadband technical assistance. Now this is a new program, so it's just rolled out. I'm going to go over the information. I will kind of caveat and saying, if you have any questions, make sure you have to contact us. Ken Wiseman at our national office really was kind of spearheaded this, and he will be able to answer any questions. That he's all over this, trying to get questions answered, do webinars, everything else. But the funds do promote broadband expansion in eligible rural areas, which include planning, operations, financial sustainability, environmental compliance, construction and engineering planning, and data collection and reporting. So we do have 20 million available, 7.5 million of that's for providers, 7.5 for recipients, and $5 million to support the cooperatives. The funding opportunity announcement was published back in April 19th, and the window closes same date, June 20th, 23. I do have the link for our website on that. Once again, there's been several webinars on that. They are uploaded on our site. A lot of good information, but once again, Ken is a wealth of information on this, especially with the new program. When we rolled out Reconnect, there's just a lot of stuff to cover on these, especially with the new program. So if you do have stuff, I can answer general questions, but like I said, that contact us is probably the best way, and Ken will get right back with you. So I think that was all I had, just kind of a quick overview of those two programs that both have the same closing date, June 20th. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Brad. We appreciate it. And just a reminder, we do send out the notes and the slide decks after these calls, so you will have access to all of the links that Brad just referenced there. So thank you so much, Brad. We appreciate it. I'm now going to hand it to our NTIA Federal Program Officer, Sarah Smith. So Sarah, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? And I know you have some websites to share, so I'm working on the back end to help give you share access while you say hello.
Awesome. Thank you so much. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarah Smith. I am the Federal Program Officer to Colorado and Wyoming for the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, as well as the Digital Equity Program. I'm going to be joining these calls on a regular basis to provide updates with, that are happening with the NTIA, and also to answer any questions. I wanted to talk a little bit today to just make sure everyone was aware, and Mark will talk more about this, but the challenge process policy document was released a couple of weeks ago. There is a template. I will share the website once I get access. And then the last thing is the FCC published yesterday their funding map. So there is a process that is required by NTIA of the states to do a deduplication of federal funding in their challenge process. So the maps that they produce, that they will be basing their challenge process off of, has to go through a process of removing enforceable commitments of federal funding from separate programs like the ones that Brad talked about today. It's a required process. So this FCC map is the first step. There will be additional support for states on the National Broadband Availability Map, which is hosted and created by the NTIA. So Lauren, why don't I just put the links in the chat to these, and that will help. And I'll be here to answer questions, and I can also provide my contact details in the chat for anybody who would like to speak to me. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. We appreciate it. All right. So in continuing with NTIA information, we wanted to talk a little bit about the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, commonly known as BEAD. So Mark Caldwell, are you good to talk about this one?
Yeah, thanks so much, Lauren. And thanks, Sarah, for providing the overview. Just so you all are aware, there's some stuff going on in the background, and wanted to give you some expectations about what you might expect from our office over the coming months. So Sarah mentioned the challenge process draft was released a couple weeks ago. The public comment period closed on May 5th. And we're anxiously waiting to see the results of that. Once we have that, we can begin finishing off parts of our initial proposal. So the next big milestones for the BEAD program, we will, by June 30th, we will find out about our allocation announcement. So we're excited to know exactly how much funding we'll get for the program. Our 5-year action plan is due August 28th. That is based on when we got our initial planning grant approved. So we've got to submit that plan, and it's well on its way. And then while that plan is important, the initial proposal is really an explanation of what we're going to do with our grant program. So as I mentioned, there's kind of two parts that NTIA recently announced. There's a volume 1, which includes things related to the challenge process, like the deduplication of funds. So we have to list out grants that the state has given, as well as federal grants and other programs. We have to have a list of unserved and underserved addresses. We have to define anchor institution. Now we have a state law that defines that. The statute itself defines it, but we will put all these things out for public comment, and and welcome your feedback on how we ought to define anchor institution. And then we need to go through the process of figuring out which anchor institutions have which kind of connectivity. Unfortunately, the FCC map does not label them out as different types of anchor institutions. So it's a bit of a challenge. And then the final thing we need to submit with volume 1 will be the actual process we plan on using. And that's why we're waiting for NTIA to put out that process so we know, hey, we want to take the out of the, off the shelf NTIA process, or do we want to try to do something a little different and get their approval for it. So we can take all of those things and submit them to NTIA, and we need to get them approved before we can run the challenge process. So again, we'll probably have a public comment period on volume 1, separate from a public comment period on volume 2 later. Volume 2 is everything else. So there's 19 things in that proposal. 4 of them will be volume 1. The other 15 are part of volume 2. And they include, lots of different things like examining the workforce and having a workforce plan, climate resiliency, do we pass any state laws to remove barriers, et cetera, et cetera. So the rest of that will be submitted or put out for public comment later, probably in the fall. And then once we submit that to NTIA and we have volume 1 approved by NTIA, we can actually open up our challenge process. So we can conduct the challenge process, which is your opportunity to tell us if we got it correct in terms of locations and service availability. And then once we conduct that challenge process, there's a couple other steps, but we basically can start our grant program. And we're hoping to start the BEAD program or open the BEAD program in the first half of next year. Might be ambitious, but our game plan is to try to get out ahead of a couple other states. All of the states will find out their allocation number the same day, and they have 180 days to submit something to NTIA. So we don't want to be submitting that. For anyone keeping track at home, that's December 27th. I would like to not be working on Christmas Eve submitting our plan. I would like to have it into them much earlier than that. So we want to try to get out ahead. That way we can open our grant program. And I think our general strategy on BEAD is we want to give you all 3 build seasons and not 2. We want to have summer of 25, summer of 26, summer of 27 available, knowing that in some parts of our state you can't construct in some times of the year. So that's the kind of overall thinking, and we'll see if we can keep on track with that. Sarah's, of course, been very helpful to help us figure out our timeline and work through it. So we'll be keeping you updated. That's what you can expect. Finally, we did submit, I didn't do it, but others did, the digital equity semi-annual report. And I want to turn it over to Melanie Coletti, who's our digital equity manager, to talk about that and any other DE updates. Melanie?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And thanks for letting me take a few minutes today in this meeting. I'm, as Mark said, Melanie, I'm the digital equity manager at the state, and I work out of the Office of the Future of Work, which is part of Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. I also work closely with a colleague from the Office of eHealth Innovation on creating a digital equity plan for the entire state of Colorado. Our plan is due at the end of November. And we've been working very closely with folks on the BEAD team because we sort of have parallel funding. While BEAD builds out the infrastructure, digital equity focuses on people having access to that connectivity, having the devices they need and the skills they need to do that. And one of the updates I wanted to share with you today, and the timing is just slightly off because we do have a very important asset survey that is going to be released within the next week or so. So I will keep the folks at the CBO updated, and hopefully they can help us get that survey out as quickly as possible when it's released. But this is the Digital Equity Ecosystem Mapping Survey, or DEAM, and it's a tool that we are using to get information about any business, nonprofit, ISP, healthcare organization, local government, workforce center, basically anyone whose work is touched by whether or not Coloradans can access the internet and use the connectivity to the internet to achieve their goals to complete this survey. So basically asset mapping at the state level like this helps us identify and build on the state's existing resources, networks, strengths. Hopefully it's going to help us with capacity building and coming up with community-based solutions, which is basically all that I'm doing with the digital equity plan. We want to make sure that as many partners as possible are invested in solutions, and this asset tool is going to help us generate that robust network of potential partners. And what's cool about this approach, I think, is that we will be able to hopefully identify some organizations, businesses, governments that maybe didn't think of themselves as being in digital equity space, but almost everyone is now. There was a National Skills Coalition just released this giant report that went through job postings, and 85% of job postings are for sure asking for applicants to have a certain level of digital skills. So I just wanted to put it out there that this tool is happening. It's something that's required by the NTIA for our digital equity plan, and it is coming soon to a computer near you. We would love for you to participate in the survey when it's released and to share it with other businesses and organizations and governments on our behalf. So thanks for giving me a few minutes to talk about that.
Great. Thanks so much, Melanie and Mark. We appreciate it. All right, moving along. I am going to just provide a couple of updates. We just held our first ever Colorado Broadband Summit. We had 350 total people between in person in the room and watching virtually. It was a fantastic event. It was so nice for us to be able to meet a lot of you who we email with and speak on the phone with and in person. So it was great. A lot of the feedback we received was just that people really liked getting together and networking and just meeting other regions, other partners, and then hearing updates from the office and the state. So we really appreciate anybody who was able to attend. If you were not able to attend, we do have everything that you could possibly need to relive the summit on our website. So we have the recordings both days. We've got all of the slide decks, pretty much anything you need there. So again, this will be sent out after the call so you can access any of those resources. Another quick update we're very, very excited about, and I think everybody in the state is in terms of broadband, SB 23-183 was signed into law by the governor on May 1st. So this removes what we truly believe is probably the biggest barrier to expanding broadband across the state, and allows municipalities and counties and communities to not have to hold an election to opt out of SB 152. So now everybody can create broadband plans that best fit the needs of their communities. So we're very excited about that. I know I see Michael McReynolds and Paige on the call. So if anybody has any additional questions about the passing of this law, they are here to help answer any questions. So you can do that during our Q&A. One final update. The FCC map, the updated version, is expected in late May. We haven't exactly heard an exact date yet. As soon as that is available, we'll make sure everybody is aware. And then our Colorado Broadband Office maps will be soon to follow after that. So some big mapping updates are just around the corner. All right, at this time, I'm going to ask Delia to pop on and talk about the Summer Roadshow.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for being with us today. I think I have mentioned before that during this summer, we will be visiting most of the regions here in Colorado. And I would like to hear from all of you, because I would like to know which regions do you think we should be visiting, which regions need more attention. And if you could please fill out a form that I'm going to put on the chat pretty soon, and let us know which region do you think we need to be going this summer to talk about the CPF guidelines and application, the 5-year action plan, an initial proposal, among other stuff. So let me put this in the chat right now, this form. And if you could please do it by the end of this week, I will truly appreciate it. Next slide, please. So this is very exciting for me. I have been working a lot on ACP and promoting it for our community to start using this incredible benefit. So I am very excited to announce that we have surpassed 200,000 households enrolled in ACP, which means that almost 27% of Coloradans have sign up for ACP and are enjoying a great discount on their internet service. This is a great milestone, and we are very confident that more people are going to be signing up for ACP, but we still need your support. So if you could please share with your community the ACP enrollment assistant tool, like I will really appreciate it. It's a very friendly tool that will help citizens here in Colorado to find out if they are eligible for ACP or not. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Delia. Okay, I believe our final update here before we open up Q&A is about our capital projects fund and the grant program. So Mark, I'll hand it back to you to talk about this one.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. So last Friday, we released the 5th FAQ for our CPF program, and we tried to address as many questions from the public comment period as we could that were just explanations about the rules. So be sure to check that out. It's a little beefier than some of the other FAQ releases. In terms of next steps for this program, we're waiting for the FCC map release. We expect it in May, although when we talked to Ed from the FCC, who was at the summit, he reminded us that they've only promised spring, and spring runs till June 21st or something like that. So we're hoping it's sooner than that, because our location data of what is in which category for the program is based on that map. So once we get the map, we have to kind of double check our lists and ensure that they're accurate so that we can open the program. That list that I referred to, the eligible location data set, that will be available in the grant application portal. Because of licensing rules and so forth, we can't just publish it on our website, but you can access in the grant application portal. So that's where that will be. The grant workbook, which was developed by our vendor, and the grant portal, we're planning to do a webinar on those in early June before the program opens. The workbook is a spreadsheet. It's got lots of things like line items and budgets and so forth. And in the grant portal, we're using Zoom grants for our grant portal. And so it's pretty common. A lot of states use it, and we think it's pretty user-friendly. So that webinar will probably be pretty long, 2 or 3 hours. And we'll record it, of course, so you can check it out. But it'll be, if you want to come and ask questions, we welcome it. I think our vendor Tilson will be driving that one. So please attend when we send that out. We're also working on the draft contract for CPF, and we're going to try to put that online before the program opens so you know what you're signing up for. The draft contract, I'm told, will look very similar to the SLFRF contract if you received a grant or have seen that copy of that contract. They're both, funded by the same program or the same law at Treasury, the ARPA legislation, and some of the rules are pretty similar. So don't expect a lot of deviations, but we'll try to get that draft contract out by the time the program opens. And then we will have a community letter of engagement template. This is one of the required parts of the application. You'll either need to submit the letter showing that you've engaged the community and they are aware of your application and willingness to serve, or have an explanation about where you're at in that process. There is a window of time listed in the CPF guidelines. And so if you don't have it by the close of the application window, you still have a little buffer period to track that down. So that's why we would allow for an explanation rather than the letter itself. So those are kind of the big next steps to stay tuned for. We're still hoping to open the program June 12th, again, based on the FCC map and when that's released and when we can compare those locations. So the best way to stay tuned is go to the Advanced Colorado Broadband website. You can click on the Capital Project Fund box. That's pretty big right on the main page. That's where you'll find the FAQ. and other resources. And we'll also be using our listserv to put out, materials so you're aware. So with that, I'll turn it back to Lauren.
Great, thanks so much, Mark. Okay, it's now your time to ask us questions, anything that's on your mind or anything regarding the updates we gave. So just a couple reminders. You can drop your question into the chat. I'm happy to read it for the team, or you can raise your hand and ask your question. Okay, so go ahead and open up for questions. Oh, and Megan,
Lauren,
I'm sorry, I see you have your hand up. Yeah.
I just want to jump in on the map question in the chat.
Sure.
So the FCC basically has two maps that they are releasing. The one that was released yesterday is the federal funding map. So they're basically saying, here are all the locations that have received federal funding from these programs. And we can use that to make sure that we're not duplicating funding. The one that we're hoping will come out soon, before the end of the month, that is the updated availability data. So that will be all the data that the providers reported, areas that they serve as of December 2022. So the current data you see on the map is June 2022, and we'll get that December data any day now. So that's the difference between the two FCC maps you're hearing about. And yes, it is confusing. I get confused as well.
Thanks, Megan. There's a lot of maps. Okay, thank you both for clarifying. Elizabeth Peets, you have your hand up, so go ahead with your question.
Yes, thank you so much for this comprehensive group of people joined on the call today. We really appreciate you guys' willingness to be really transparent as we all lean towards the granting application. I had a question related. Oh, and sorry, I'm with Comcast. I had a question about the community letter of engagement based on the FAQ you guys released. And we got a question internally about whether you were only looking for local government letters of support, or you also meant that we could do like organizations within the community. And I just was hoping you could clarify that. And maybe when the template is released, it'll provide more information. But if you guys know off the top of your head what kinds of community letters you are hoping to see in that process, that would be very helpful.
Allie Terry can jump in if she has any other insights, but I think we're looking for the community of the government entity letter of support. But I think we have that question to discuss, and in the final guidelines we can make a final determination. It's not an exclusive letter, by the way. It's not like a community gets approached by 3 providers and they can only pick one. They could support every project that came to town. So just want to make that clear too. But we'll definitely address the I think it's always helpful to have more evidence of support for your project in an application window. I think we're looking for the government, but we'll clarify that for sure in the final guidelines. And then I think that buffer period from the time it closes will give people enough time. We recognize that city councils don't meet too regularly, and a lot of times in rural areas, the mayor is the farmer, is the butcher, and they're busy and they go on vacations, and maybe they don't go. Well, my ranching family doesn't really go on vacation much, but some people go on vacation and miss a meeting and so forth. So it's not always easy to get that in a really timely manner. So, but Elizabeth, hopefully that answers it. We'll definitely have it in the final guidelines, and I think it's always helpful to submit if you got letters from other folks, the school, the library, the museum, whatever.
Great, thank you.
Fred's pasted the actual text in there from the guidelines.
Thanks, Fred.
So governing body or containing the proposed service area. And like I said, we've got your question, Elizabeth, and we'll chat. And if we decide to make a change, it'll be in the final guidelines. But that's from the draft guidelines there that Fred pasted in.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Zach Cole, go ahead with your question.
Sure. Yeah, sort of along the similar lines, I guess, in terms of community engagement. I mean, I know there was earlier in the presentation, there was talk about the road show. I guess just very generally, I mean, does the Colorado Broadband Office have kind of a list of those communities that you're meeting with, hearing from, that are sort of seeking, service provider engagement and that kind of thing? Just sort of having you guys help bridge the gap, if you will, of service providers and those communities that are expressing need.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I don't know that we have sort of a comprehensive list of every community. I think any location or town on the map that shows no service is obviously an eligible place to go. One other program that's out there is our Broadband Ready program. So you can look on that page on our Advanced Colorado website, and you can see a variety of communities that have tried to do things to make them more attractive to investment from ISPs. The DOLA programs would be another maybe smart area to look at. DOLA has funded feasibility studies, designs, and so forth. So that's the name of that program is called the Energy/Mineral Impact Assistance Fund, EIAF. We can grab that link and paste it in there. You might be able to find communities that have an open RFP or have done a feasibility study or got funding for that. And I don't know if others, Kindle has been working pretty closely on the Broadband Ready program. I don't know if I don't think we have necessarily a master list of places that reach out to us. But Kendall, you got any other insights on that question?
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. There we go. Yeah, we don't really necessarily have a big list. Like we said, we've been working with several communities that have applied to Broadband Ready, but don't necessarily have a big list to provide. I will drop in. I was just looking up the Mineral and Energy Impact Assistance Fund program. So I will definitely drop that into the chat here.
It looks like Megan may have already dropped that one in, if that's what Megan dropped in, by the way, Kendall.
Thanks, Megan. Appreciate that.
Everybody's on it. Thank you. Zach, does that provide you enough information?
Yeah, that's helpful. No, it's definitely a start. Yeah, and just kind of to dovetail, and I don't expect a necessary response. This is more just a comment. Yeah, I was a virtual attendee, at the conference. I thought the gentleman from, the Southern Ute tribal instance, he did a good job of presenting on open access, and so, that's we're kind of an infrastructure provider. That really advocates for open access type architectures. And so in general, that's one of the things that, I found with lots of communities don't necessarily even know the benefits of. So I really thought he did a great job, by the way, in your during the conference, just to kind of, talk to what the benefits and why. So anyway, I just don't know, that's one of those things that we find is not a lot of communities necessarily see or hear that. So anyway, that's kind of part of the reason for the question, but that's helpful to have this info.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for the input.
I think too, Zach, our roadshow will help, connect, learn some more of this, and because we'll be able to get out into each individual region and really understand what's going on there and the needs. And we have been asked that question multiple times. I know that that's a need for communities to find ISPs and ISPs to find communities. And so we are, I think, in the back of our minds thinking too how we can possibly help connect the right partners with each other. So as we go out on our roadshow, I think that's something our team will probably learn a lot of. And I think, I encourage, and I'm sure Delia would say the same, and encourage your attendance at the roadshows, if it's a region that you work in. So it's kind of the purpose of them.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Again, you can drop them in the chat, you can raise your hand.
Hey, Lawrence, John Lee at Charter. Just a quick question. I know DOLA has spent a lot of money in the last few years building out a lot of middle mile and partnering with different nonprofits like Region 10. They do a great job of constructing carrier neutral locations. And I've had this conversation with a couple of folks. I think would be extremely helpful for all the ISPs if there was one simple, centrally located list of available CNLs that are either available for tenants or under construction as we put together CPF and B plans. And it seems surprisingly difficult to get that list somehow.
Yeah, John, thanks for the question. I know we've talked about that recently, and I gave you a couple of suggestions, but that's something we'll try to track down either through DOLA. Maybe they could help produce the list. I know going through their Energy Mineral Impact Fund, they have like all the awards, which includes sewer and water projects and whatnot. So it's a little tricky. We're actually doing that, compiling that for our BEAD plan. We've got to show, state funding of projects. So it's an activity we're going through now. And maybe we can work with either the regions that have received the funding or with DOLA and try to put something together. Because the idea of the carrier neutral location is that we could get multiple competitors to come in, and of course that's hard to do when you don't know where you're going.
Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, John. Okay, so there's a question that just popped up in the chat. I will read. If a new broadband data line, for example, fiber, is installed on utility poles, is it privately owned, or does Colorado law require that the new line is shared with all companies? That's a great question. I don't know if, Judd, maybe you're on the call and you can help answer that, or if someone else on our team knows the answer to that question. I thought I said Judd, maybe he dropped. Judd, are you here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're here.
I'm here. I think that's one we'll have to get back to you on. I mean, that's looking up some regs and things like that. Yeah, I'd have to do some digging on that one.
Sure.
I'll get back to you.
Yeah, we can certainly take that and get back to you, Chris.
Yeah.
Sure. He's asking for follow-up contact. I don't know, Jed, is it best for him to reach out to you, or do you want?
Sure.
Okay. Or Mark too. We're happy to.
Yeah, we do typically send out an email after these too, with the recording and stuff. So we'll try to get it answered by the time we send that out. But if not, you can feel free to reach out to me or Judd or whoever.
Okay. All right, thank you, Chris, for your question. Thanks, Judd. Okay, other questions? We've got 20 minutes left, so plenty of time. And team, I don't know if there's any other updates that we didn't cover that you think would be beneficial for industry service providers on the call to hear, but I think sometimes we run through our updates fairly quickly to give you guys time, but if there's something else you need us to elaborate on based on what we talked about, feel free to ask us to do that too. Okay. If there are not any other questions, we will give you 20 minutes of your time back. And like I said, we will follow up with all the answers to the questions as well as all the information that we provided. And this isn't your only time to ask questions. Obviously, you can reach out to our team anytime. A reminder, we have a programs team that you can reach out to. They are divided up by regions. Ali and Mike Murphy, and then Kendall is our program specialist over the whole grant program. So any of these people you can reach out to, as well as the rest of our office, but there are their contact information. And then a reminder, the next call is not until July 18th. So at this point, hopefully we have an updated FCC map. We have a grant program open. A lot, I think, will change between now and then. So feel free to join us with that on that call. And then email, we have an advanced email now dedicated to the grant program itself. So grant program questions, comments, anything like that can be directed to that email address right there on the screen. And then also we have a newsletter, which is full of valuable information, including information on this grant program. So sign up for that if you're not already signed up.
One more
so-
note, Lauren.
Yeah.
We actually built a page earlier this year. As you can imagine, like every state, we get lots of media requests, interviews, so on and so forth. So there, if you go to any page on our broadband.colorado.gov website, at the bottom, there's a stay connected area. That's where you can sign up for the newsletter or follow us on Twitter. But we have a link there called Broadband in the News. And those are sort of news articles that come out about broadband in Colorado and things that we're doing in the state. So you might check that out. There's some pretty good news coverage of, different things going on.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Actually, that's a great way to keep updated with what's going on in the broadband office. We get a lot of media coverage on just what we're doing and what's going on. So yeah, thanks. You just dropped it in the chat. So, okay, well, if there are not any other questions or comments, we will give you a little time back, but thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Bye, everyone.